Hello and welcome once again to another review, a retro review for Cheap Shot Entertainment. It seems to be the only thing that I'm doing these days for the wrestling channel, as I'm getting booked on more and more shows. If you want to check those shows out, go and check out DN Wrestling and also Aspire Community and Wrestling Alliance, and you may just see a picture of my mug on those pages on social media. Also check out the Cheap Shot Entertainment social media, that is Instagram, Twitter and Facebook at various different handles, all available at the end of this video, so I hope you managed to get there. We're looking at a retro review 2002 No Mercy 2002, which is an absolutely stacked card at the in Arkansas, and it's really good pay-per-view. Watched this while I was on holiday, took my Amazon Fire Stick with me and just watched an old school pay-per-view on one night, and it was just amazing. What a pay-per-view this is, very much recommended. Took place on the 20th of October 2002 in Little Rock, Arkansas, in front of 10,000 people who bought tickets, and really good. As ever, we also go through which games this is available on, and it's SmackDown Here Comes the Pain and Raw 2. I don't think there's going to be much difference in those in the coming months either. We're almost at the end of 2022, but we're also almost at the end of the 2002 pay-per-views, with Survivor Series being another massive one in the history of WWE as we know it. So if you have watched this pay-per-view, were you there? Tell us, what did you think of it? We have a Hell in a Cell match, a title unification match, and all other levels in between. It's really good. I'd suggest you go and watch it. It is available on WWE Network, or if you are in the US, I imagine it will be on Peacock as well. Let's get into the main part of the video. I'm really excited to review this one. This is awesome! Right, so we begin No Mercy 2002 at the All-Tel Arena with a Sunday night heat match. It is the Hurricane versus Steven Richards. Obviously this one is not on the network, and the Hurricane defeats Steven Richards, who often says, "I'll show you, you'll see." Obviously he didn't on this occasion. First match of the night is for the World Tag Team Championships. It is Chris Jericho and Christian versus Goldust and Booker T, two teams that have been thrown together. Normally would be singles competitors, but these two teams do have a really good rivalry. Chris Jericho and Christian are the current champions. Goldust and Booker T have a common enemy. They've been brought together to take on the champions. And after a hard-fought match, the tag team champions do retain their tag team championships. There is a rope. Oh, yeah, of course. The one of the spots goes very wrong towards the end of the match, and Jericho goes for a lion salt. The rope breaks unceremoniously. It wasn't meant to happen. You can tell that by the way that Jericho landed on the lion salt. Jericho, like the professional that he is, gets up, hits the bulldog, and on the title that Christian brought into the ring to finish this match off, he does get a moonsault then for the pin. Obviously the rope is broken, so there's not much they can do with that. yeah, really good match. Great match to open up. Always good matches happening at the beginning of shows. I'm going to give this one 3 cheap shots out of 5 as the champions retained. There wasn't many hijinks. The only thing that went wrong really was the rope breaking, but sometimes, those things happen. And we move on to the back now where Funaki, SmackDown's #1 announcer, interviews Al Wilson about Dawn Marie, showing various clips of Dawn Marie seducing Al Wilson, lucky bugger. And it leads us to the next match. It is Dawn Marie, who is seducing Al Wilson, who happens to be Tori Wilson's dad. And again, this match really good. To say both of these two ladies had experience in being valets, managers, just being there for the bikini contest. These two actually put on a really good show. Excuse me. They put on a really good match. Very basic, but sometimes that's all you need. And every single shot looked believable because they are having a rivalry, and that is exactly what you need it to be. Dawn Marie puts up a good fight, but ultimately Tori Wilson was the winner here with a swinging neckbreaker. Something you don't see a lot is a swinging neckbreaker finish. At least nowadays, and sort of 20 years ago, things had to be much more elaborate and over the top. Swinging neckbreaker for the win. Tori wins. I'm going to give this 2 cheap shots out of 5 because, it was a really good match. There was some technical issues. But, if these two were given more time, I would see both of them as women's champion, as it was. Yeah, really enjoyed this one. Really good match. RVD in the back now being interviewed by the coach and about his rivalry with Ric Flair. With the last pay-per-view Unforgiven, Ric Flair turned his back on RVD. And RVD cuts a really good promo with the chair swinging, Van Daminator kicking, and all that kind of stuff. It was really good, really good promo. And that leads us to Ric Flair versus RVD. RVD obviously tries to take out Ric Flair with the fast-moving pace of his offense and the kicks and the flurries and things like that. Ric Flair would get the upper hand on RVD for quite a lot of this match, actually, with the target being on the leg of RVD to lock in the figure 4. And after a lot of backing and forthing, they went outside, they fought inside, as they often did in 2002. RVD does eventually pick up the win with the 5-star frog splash. Possibly my favourite frog splash of all time, because it just looks so impactful. And if you're going to do something, make it look impactful. Just make it happen. So yeah, RVD gets the win. I'm going to give this one 3 out of 5 cheap shots as well. Not real bad match on the card so far, and it only goes up and up and up from here. Now I'd usually break all these things up, but I've got them all written down before, after watching the pay-per-view in whole. So we move on to the next promo, and this is really where it's broken up really well. As Stephanie talks to the Big Show, gives him some advice about how he's feeling, because he's feeling like he's underutilized, underused. He's a giant, he's an angry giant, and he should be used better. Bischoff interrupts and tries to boss the Big Show around. Big Show says he's a very angry giant, and Big Show ends up manhandling Bischoff into the catering area, basically. And Bischoff does a really good job here of looking very scared, like he's almost, dropped a load in his trousers, basically. Which, if someone 7 foot grabs you round the throat, yeah. That's the promo. Obviously, that storyline would tick on in future weeks. Cruiserweight Championship now. It is Tajiri versus Jamie Noble. And these two had a storied rivalry for the couple of weeks before the pay-per-view. Jamie Noble and Nidia were having some relationship problems. The only way they knew how to sort this out was to have a match. They appointed Tajiri as the special guest referee. Obviously, they were palling around a little bit before that. And, Tajiri tried to save Jamie Noble. Tried to save Nidia from Jamie Noble. They both end up laying into Tajiri after this. So, they decided that this would be leading to a match. Jamie Noble and Nidia obviously making up. Tajiri here is, fully fired up. Jamie Noble is the sort of power move using cruiserweight of the time, using a powerbomb, for example, as his finisher. But the way this one would finish would be Tajiri going for a victory roll. Almost gets it, but Nidia grabs Noble's leg to give the leverage for the win. Really, there wasn't much interference here. There was a lip lock on Tajiri to try and distract him. There wasn't much of an interference, but I quite like the way this one was done, because it was done in a way where the referee couldn't get involved and couldn't see what was happening. So, really good match. 3 cheap shots out of 5 for this one. It's and then a lip lock contest ensues afterwards, which would backfire on Noble, with Tajiri kicking him in the back of the head. Jamie Noble retains. We next get a backstage segment again. Benoit, that's Chris Benoit, for those of you who don't know who he is, tells Eddie Guerrero that Chavo is getting beaten up in the back. Eddie doesn't believe him to start with, but he does eventually go to the door that Benoit is telling him to go through. And again, still doesn't believe him. Says, no, that's not Chavo. But eventually finds out that it is actually Chavo, and he's been beaten up by Kurt Angle behind that door. Of course, this was the reversal, the I can't even think of retaliation. There we go. That's the word. Retaliation for what the Guerreros did to Kurt Angle, of course. And ultimately, Eddie Guerrero and Chavo aren't in a match on this card, in fact. But Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle are in possibly what could be the match of the night, besides the main event. So we move on now. It is Intercontinental Champion versus World Heavyweight Champion in a unification match. And the culmination of the very rubbish Katie Vick story, where Kane had a girlfriend, he drove, he got into an accident, Katie Vick died. Triple H would then proceed to taunt Kane by climbing in a coffin with a dummy and having intercourse with it whilst wearing a Kane mask. Yes, 2002, people. What a year to be alive. Anyway, so this is a unification match. Don't know why they would do this, to be honest. Obviously, the Intercontinental Championship is very storied. I have no idea why they would take the Intercontinental Championship away, because they were actually planning on getting rid of it completely after this match. Not unifying it and having Triple H with both titles. Maybe then he gave it to Ric Flair or whatever. But they actually considered getting rid of the IC Championship, the Intercontinental Championship. Of course, Kane is the Intercontinental Champion and Triple H is the designated World Heavyweight Champion, according to Eric Bischoff. And this one it's decent. You know, it's what you'd expect from these two, being absolute veterans of the sport of wrestling, the noble sport of wrestling. And it's decent. But we get the introduction of Sister Sledge, i.e. the Sledgehammer, and that goes into the ribs and shoulder in the corner, and the pedigree ultimately ensues. Obviously, there's a lot of fighting in this one, and Ric Flair is there as well. Not a patch on the main match that we'll get to later on in this review, but certainly a decent match. I'm going to give this one 3.5 cheap shots out of 5, and very much worth a watch. Like I say, not clear how they came to the idea that it was a good idea to do what they did. So I mean, Flair comes down to interfere. Hurricane tries to make the save, as Kane would try and come back. He would take out Ric Flair, but ultimately Triple H would get the win. So there you go. That is that match. Triple H is the unified champion now, and we move on from there. So the next match is the WWE Tag Team Championship match. A newly minted championship, because the World Championships are exclusive to Raw. In the brand split, they did sort of like a splitting of the titles, hence the introduction of the World Heavyweight Championship and the introduction of the WWE Tag Team Championship, and eventually the US Championship as well. So it would be Benoit and Angle, two people chucked together by Stephanie McMahon, who have been given an ultimatum. Basically, if they cannot work together, they'll be suspended for a full year without pay from WWE, from SmackDown. So they have every reason to work together in this one. And on the other side, after coming through their bracket of the championship tournament, and I do miss a good tournament, I've got to admit, now Triple H is in charge. Hopefully we'll get some more tournaments, maybe even bring back a proper King of the Ring pay-per-view. Or even put that on NXT. Now they've nicked War Games and put it on Survivor Series, although that does sound really cool. Rey Mysterio and Edge. Very young, fresh-faced Mysterio and Edge. Mysterio obviously making his debut earlier in the year, and Edge going newly into his singles career, which but then obviously getting a tag team championship match here. Well, this match, it's really hard to describe how bloody good this match actually is. You've got Benoit and Angle, who play the roles of rival tag team partners really, really well. Not seen anything like it until Cesaro and Sheamus, where you weren't with either of them, but as soon as they came together, they were this force that were just pretty much unstoppable. And then you've got Mysterio and Edge. Mysterio, very quick. Edge, obviously the stronger of the two, but also very quick. Like to do a bit of jumping, like to do a bit of thumping and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I was so engrossed in this match that I didn't make any notes. I didn't even... Oh, actually, no, I did. I did make a note as to how the match finished. All I will say to you on this match, and I do apologise for not being able to describe it, but this match was so good that if I could give it a 6 out of 5 cheap shots, I actually would. And in fact, I am going to give this the Big Boss seal of approval for best match or of the night. So, great match. The match finishes with the shotgun finish. Edge hitting his finisher. Benoit trying to hit his finisher. Mysterio hitting the 619. But it would end up eventually with the ankle lock locked in on Edge for the win. And Benoit and Angle are the first ever SmackDown WWF or WWE World Champions. And they will go down in history as that duo. And this match, wow, just absolutely insane. So good, so well structured. If you're a student of the game, watch this match. If you're a tag team wrestler, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Wouldn't have expected anything less from all of these guys because they're so good individually. They work so well together. Mysterio and Angle worked really well together. Edge was responsible for Angle losing his hair. Benoit and Angle have had lots of really good matches as well. And obviously Mysterio and Benoit were both in ECW and WCW at the same time. So, you've got a real good combination of talent in this one. I'm going to give this one 5 cheap shots out of 5. And like I say, the Big Boss seal of approval. And really, really, really good match. We move on now, and this the women now have a huge hole to fill because the crowd are so out of it because of the last match that the women sort of got the short straw, I suppose. But it's nice to see them so high up on the card. It is for the Women's Championship. It is Trish, the current Women's Champion, versus Victoria. This one, sadly, didn't get much time to work itself out. Now, obviously, Victoria's come in as a big rival to Trish. And they haven't had much time to work together, and you can kind of tell they haven't had much time to work together. That being said, I did enjoy the match. There were some things in there that they did fluff, but ultimately it was a very decent match. With Trish, I've said this many, many times, Trish working so hard to get to the status that she is, Victoria coming in as an actual women's wrestler, gave her something different to do. But it would be Trish to retain the championship with the Stratisfaction. Stratisfaction, is reversed, but Trish gets the roll up for the win. So she didn't get the satisfaction on Victoria. Victoria reversed it. Trish then hit the roll up for the win. Not even a surprise roll up, so it's not even the most devastating move in sports entertainment today. After the match, Victoria would just straight out punch Trish in the mouth, and she would drop her rival and walk away. I'm going to give this one 2 cheap shots out of 5. Ultimately, kind of fell flat because of how good the match before it was. That being said, it wasn't a bad match at all. Whew, and breathe. So we're going to the world now because it's not WWF New York anymore, so I can't even sing the jingle. But it's which jobber is at WWE The World in New York. It is Rikishi, the man with the behind, the ass man. Oh no, that's Billy Gunn, who has now progressed to daddy ass. Anyway, got to put a little ass on it. Rikishi is at the World. He talks about the Hell in a Cell and his one match that he had where he got thrown off the top of the Hell in a Cell by The Undertaker into a truck full of straw and wood shavings. Still, one of the most memorable Hell in a Cell matches that we've seen that took place in Armageddon 2000. You can find that retro review on the channel. We did start in 2020, doing 20 years before, obviously. So yeah, you've got that to go and have a look at. I'll try and put a link in the description as well. When he talks about how dangerous it is, and of course that match was the 6th. I think was it the first ever 6? It was the first ever. I think it was the only 6-man Hell in a Cell where they were all singles competitors. We have had tag team matches in there. We've had 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s in Hell in a Cells, but never anything else really. I'd like to see that concept come back, but then you've got the Elimination Chamber, which would ultimately sort of take the place of that and be much better because it was released in timers. So it's like the Royal Rumble and Hell in a Cell all in one, which was cool. So we go on to the main event. What can you say about this main event? It is a damn near perfect main event Hell in a Cell match, and for my money, this could possibly be the best Hell in a Cell match we have ever seen on WWE television. Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar. It had the storyline behind it. You had 2 guys at the top of the game. Undertaker's obviously been in the industry been in WWE for 12 years at this point. Obviously was wrestling a lot longer than that. Probably is about a 20-year veteran at this point in time. Brock Lesnar just coming through, youngest ever WWE champion. And Undertaker's going to try and stop him. He's got a broken hand. And Stephanie's decree that Undertaker can wear his cast in the Hell in a Cell. And that would play out as one of the major talking points for this match. Doesn't take them long to get busted open. There's blood everywhere, the gushing, and it is true. They do bleed, and if you do it wrong, it can go wrong. Even Paul Heyman has a go at his extreme brand of wrestling by having his tie pulled through the Hell in a Cell in one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen a manager do and a manager be involved with. Undertaker grabs his tie and pulls him into the cell several times on purpose. Then Paul Heyman is bloodied up. This match, it's crazy, man. There's chairs, there's stairs. Obviously, they use the cell quite a bit. This one, they don't go out of the cell, which is pretty cool. So they actually make it a whole match inside the cell. They don't spend much time in the ring, obviously, only to get the win at the end. After Undertaker had pulled Brock Lesnar into the cell several times, it would be then Brock Lesnar getting the better of the Undertaker and Paul Heyman putting his belt around the Undertaker's arm, who would then hold on to it like a sort of hangman thing with his broken arm. Brock Lesnar would then go at the Undertaker's broken arm with a weapon and really sort of lay into it, playing through the story. The Undertaker had a pain-killing shot before the match, begging the trainer to do it, otherwise he wouldn't get through. And he did manage to get through. Ultimately, Brock Lesnar would pull the cast off, which obviously is, big major talking point. Probably the only thing that I can sort of question, really, on this one. And, from there, Brock would go in for the kill like a shark smelling blood. Undertaker would come back and ultimately would succumb to the F5, having tried to hit the tombstone. And what a match. What a really, really what an amazing match. Like I say, it is possibly for me the best Hell in a Cell match in history. Better than the first one. Better than the Undertaker Mankind ones. Because they don't go out of the cell. And they use the cell for exactly what it is and what it's made for. Exactly what it needs. It's just a fantastic match. Love both of these guys and love the fact that they were in this match together. Dare I say that this would be another 6 out of 5 if I could do it. But we're going to get 2 5 cheap shots out of 5s on one pay-per-view and another Big Boss seal of approval for this match. Really just one heck of a fantastic pay-per-view. If you're looking for something to watch in that's a bit old school, then why not go to No Mercy? Really good, fantastic. I think this is probably one of the only modern pay-per-views that I've actually got on DVD because it was that good. Apart from having WrestleMania 20, 21 and 22 on DVD and a couple of compilations, I don't have many wrestling DVDs. Don't need them anymore. It's all on the network, isn't it? Hashtag $9.99. Yes, you can give me a free subscription if you like. Anyway, so that is No Mercy as Brock retains and celebrates on top of the cell. We go closer to 2003, and actually it's the most rounded pay-per-view of 2002. Brilliant from start to finish. I was absolutely hooked. Bearing in mind, like I say, I watched this on holiday, and it was about probably 1 o'clock in the morning when I finished this. Didn't sleep at one point ever. Also watched Extreme Rules, and again 2002 Extreme Rules, really good pay-per-view. But we are on retros, so yes, I think this might be the most rounded pay-per-view in 2002, and there were some bloody good pay-per-views in 2002, including WrestleMania 18. So really good, fantastic. and we move on to Survivor Series in November. So that leaves me to say thank you very much for watching and or listening if you're joining us for the brand new podcast. And we'll see you in November for Survivor Series. Looking forward to this one. There is a first on this show. And it's going to be a really good one. Really good one. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Retro wrestling fans. Goodbye.
Hiya!